Well, hello, my baby gorillas, and let's go straight over to this. What's happening here? Let's make sure I'm on the. Oh, let's see. Let me see. Hold on, just give me a second. Make sure I'm actually streaming here. Where are we going? Honestly, trying to get into your own channel is just absolutely torturous. It should just be a one button click here. Let's see if I'm up. I'm up. Oh my goodness.
Your growing business can do it all with Brevo. Email campaigns, SMS campaigns, chat, a CRM.
Oh yeah, we're in. Let's go. This could be the biggest announcement. Oh yes. Come on, Nigel. Let's just skip along here.
Afternoon at very short notice. I'm Dr. David Bull. I'm Deputy Lead.
What?
Every time.
Where'd I go?
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you very much indeed for coming this afternoon at very short notice. I'm Dr. David Bull. I'm Deputy Leader of Reform UK. I don't need to tell you this is an incredibly exciting time in British politics. Reform UK going up and up in the polls. And that's thanks in no small part to the gentleman I want to introduce to you now. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Lovely. Pleasure. Great to see you. Thank you, David. Good afternoon, everybody. Lovely to see you here in Glaziers Hall. And goodness me, 12 days in. Does it feel like a lifetime? Anyone bored yet? No, we've been trying to create some interest in this general election campaign. And here we are. Everyone thought that Reform UK, that we'd get squeezed out. That was the Prime Minister's and the Tories' strategy. They said, well, let's try and squeeze Reform down. Well, it's interesting, isn't it? What's happening to the polls? Are we going down? Are we holding? No. We're going up. Yes, totally contrary to the Tories' plans. Actually, we're going up in the polls. And that's because we've been talking about what the country wants to talk about. But the main two parties, they're too embarrassed to talk about it because it doesn't suit their narrative or because they've completely messed it up. Yes, this is and must be the immigration election. That's why when the news came out about Facebook, without spending anything on Facebook advertising, we're getting the most likes, the most shares, because we're talking about what people want to talk about. And then campaigning, end of last week, in Boston and Skegness, in Ashfield, we're getting a fantastic response. It is truly extraordinary, but something is going on out there. Word is spreading like wildfire. People know there is something fundamentally wrong with what's going on in our country. And people are working out what it is. I've talked about it. Nigel's talked about it. The huge unplanned increase in the population is putting massive pressure on housing, on rents, on the affordability of accommodation, the pressure on healthcare. And it's suppressing wages for the lowest paid, the least well off, and the young. And it's simply unfair. And at least we're prepared to talk about it, because that's actually what the country wants to be talking about, and that's why we're going up in the polls. And people are looking for a bit of interest. I mean, there's not much interest in the main two parties, in the polling. They're basically not moving, or the Tories are slightly slipping. Now, I've obviously last week tried to install a bit of interest into this election. I've been talking about barbers. Others have been talking about hairdressers. It's getting people going. Why not? We need some interest. But But actually, how do we go from interest to real excitement? How do we actually energize this election? How do we really say, let's turn on the rocket boosters? If we're in our highest pollings, 14, 15 type %, that's good. I'm delighted with that. But I'm hungry for more. I'm ambitious. I want to do ever, ever better. And that's why I thought, we can do better than this. We can go from 5th gear through to 6th gear. This is a fossil-fueled car, by the way. To 7th gear, but what about 8th gear? What about turning on, how do we turn on the turbo boosters, the rocket chargers to this campaign? And as people know, I wanted Nigel to be able to give as much energy and effort and commitment to this campaign as he felt able to do. Now, Sunak thought he'd got one ahead of us, and everyone fell for it. I thought, no, let's get some real excitement into that campaign. So the big question is, does Nigel want to stand? I've got a different question. And I think this may drive and excite and enthuse ever more action, ever more boost to Reform UK. I thought, well, actually, what I'd really like is to invite Nigel to be leader of Reform UK. And to my absolute delight, he accepted.
Yay!
So that's what the plan is, and that's why I'm delighted to welcome...
People in the future will be wondering why I'm so cheery. I am so cheery that I got another one of my predictions correct. It's unbelievable how many predictions I get in British politics correct. It's like unbelievable. Nostradamus. And now, Nigel, a great move as well by Richard Tice, very intelligent guy, nice fella as well. People criticise Richard, I think he's a nice fella, I like him. And a great political strategic move by Richard as well, because he'll ride several waves on the back of this. But I'm expecting polls now to show the Reform UK overtaking the Conservative Party. I'm expecting polls now in the next few days to show Reform UK on 24%, with the Conservative Party under 20%, looking almost like a complete wipeout. I think they might get under 66 MPs. So that was the last disastrous poll. With Nigel coming back and the shift of Conservative and potentially Labour, I'll come back to that, Labour voters shifting from where they are just now to Reform UK, we may see a drop in Labour Party support in the red wall seats as well, now that Nigel has come back as leader. This is absolutely massive news. We might see inroads into the Labour Party and the Labour heartlands as the Brexiteer, the ultimate Brexiteer, Nigel Farrage, comes back to lead the Reform UK. And what we may also see is the not only the consolidation, the move away from Labour, but we're going to have to see how Rishi Sunak, Sir Keir Starmer and Nigel Farage shape up to be who would be the best leader. And it's obviously Nigel Farage out of the three of those. So this is a whole new dynamic. The Labour Party couldn't explain their immigration policy because they're just shells for the globalists, and they'll do exactly the same as the Conservative Party. So we're now going to see this absolutely dynamic push now in Reform UK into second place, and now challenging the dominance of the Labour Party and control of Labour voting Labourites. And the move from them to Reform UK, not to mention me, Georgie Porgy, and the Workers' Party, which I'll come back to later. But this is absolutely massive. Not long to go. So I'm expecting Nigel to stand in Clacton and continue to lead. So he had to spend a bit of the time of the 7 days in Clacton, the majority of the time out in the constituency, out in the country. But he's also going to have an ability to be seen as well. He'll get much more coverage than anybody else. And could we see Reform UK winning the general election, which was my predicament 3 years ago, and will go down as the greatest Nostradamus moment in British political forecasting?
Welcome my very good friend, Nigel, to the stage to take us forward from here. Thank you very much indeed.
Second place within the next few days, Reform UK on 24%, the Conservative Party under 18%. We're going to start seeing defections now from the Conservative Party to Reform UK, which will now be in a stronger position to continue, especially with those that are actually Conservative MPs. They may get to stand and move to Reform rather than getting wiped out with the Conservative Party.
Great stuff. Very, very good. Richard, thank you very much indeed. Now, we put out the operations notice for today under the title Emergency Election Announcement. And we did that because we think this election needs a bit of gingering up. Thus far, it is the dullest, most boring election campaign we have ever seen in our lives. And it's funny because the more the two big party leaders try to be different, the more they actually sound the same. We've reached such ridiculous levels that we saw yesterday on the Conservatives' social media a post about the cross-channel illegal migration crisis with Starmer's got no plan, the Tories have reduced cross-channel migrants by 36%. So they've even come to lying, because it's now up nearly 30% this year. Sir Keir Starmer overnight, of course, on this big issue of immigration, says that they are going to cut the numbers. He, of course, the man who campaigned not just for a second referendum, but a believer in open borders, and a man who was a lawyer, fought very, very hard for those that arrive on the back of lorries to get benefits once they got here. So, frankly, we're in a situation, I think, where nobody believes a word that they say, no one's listening, people are zoned out, and right at the minute, none of the above is top of the polls by a country mile. And the problem with all this is we know whoever wins, taxes will remain high. The highest tax burden since 1948.
And I'll come on to taxes and the Bank of England later on when I talk about Carol Benjamin.
Everyone's promising not to put taxes up, but nobody talks about reducing the tax burden. We also know that our people are getting poorer. Yes, we had growth in the economy. The last set of figures were slightly better than before. GDP, they call it. We must all bow down to...
Let me just check this is going properly. I want to make sure that...
Pains SM.
A very short notice. I'm Dr. David Bull. I'm
Yet? No, we've been trying to create some interest in this general election campaign. And here we are. Everyone thought that Reform UK, that...
Right, terrific.
To the god of GDP. In fact, the more we have, the better the GDP numbers are, because there are more people in the country. But what about GDP per person, per capita? It went down by almost 0.7% over the last year. So we know that taxes will stay high. We know that mass immigration will continue, regardless of which party wins power. We know that people will get poorer, but we also know that crime, or fear of crime, will get worse. London, even the wealthier parts of London, have been transformed over the course of the last few years. Crime is so bad now that people generally don't even bother to report it. But it's okay, you can go shoplifting and nick up to 200 quid's worth of kit before anybody is even going to prosecute you. And these are all symptoms of a country that actually is in decline. We're in economic decline in relative terms. Oh, sure, we're doing better than our former partners in the European Union, but we're massively behind America and many other parts of the world. We're in social decline, and we're actually in a form of moral decline. We've forgotten who we are as a country. We heard a very impassioned speech by Keir Starmer this morning about D-Day, and he talked about his own brother serving on HMS Antelope in the Falklands. And he spoke actually with a great degree of passion. But here's a little statistic that sums up what's been wrong with our ruling classes. On Thursday of this week, there'll be massive international commemorations of D-Day, something in which the British played an extraordinary part, something which we can be just immensely proud of in terms of what we were able to organise, able to do, and the courage that people showed. But can you believe a poll out last week showed that 52% of 18 to 34-year-olds don't even know what D-Day is. And that's what you get when you're led by a career political class that don't really care about the country, that are embarrassed to say anything that could be seen to be vaguely patriotic. Oh, we're told that Michael Gove and others have improved the education system. Well, I tell you what, if over half of our young people in this country do not know about an event that is within living memory and which should be one of the proudest things this nation has ever managed to achieve, something I think is fundamentally wrong at every level. The centre of gravity on every national debate has moved hugely to the left since 2010, when David Cameron and George Osborne took power. So we represent a very different kind of politics. We believe that the Westminster political class are now more detached from ordinary folk than they were even before that referendum stunned everybody back all those years ago now in 2016. Something has gone very, very wrong. What we also know is the election is over. It's done. Labour have won the election. There is not a contest. There is a big MRP poll coming out on Sky News at 5 o'clock that will confirm all the things that we've seen before. Whether the Conservatives get 80 seats or 150 seats is now almost irrelevant. Starmer has won this election. And that's my fear. Nothing will change. Maybe things will get ever so slightly worse. Now, I stood here a week ago and I said, look, hands up. I've been nonplussed by Rishi calling a short-term election. Doesn't give me the time to fight a constituency. Doesn't give me the time to build up data. I thought the rational thing to do was not to stand, but to do my bit, as I put it, supporting the country around the party. And for the last week, that is what I've been doing. I've been travelling all around the country. I've had the honour of appearing with Piers Morgan on Question Time, amongst other things. I've been to Dover to talk about the migrant crisis that I alone predicted 4.5 years ago. But more importantly, I've been out on the streets, meeting an awful lot of people. And interestingly, a lot of young people. And I'll tell you this, and you won't have got this yet, and the pollsters won't yet have picked this up, but I promise you, after 30 years of experience in this game, something is happening out there. There is a rejection of the political class going on in this country in a way that has not been seen in modern times. But the other thing that really shook me in a way last week were the number of people coming up to me on the street saying, Nigel, why aren't you standing? And I gave my logical, rational reasons for it. But I couldn't help, after each exchange, I simply couldn't help feeling that somehow they felt I was letting them down, that I wasn't standing up for these people in their millions who've stood with me, in some cases for many, many years. Election battles, referendums. And I guess I have been a champion for many of those people. I took the day off yesterday, had a normal day, walked the dogs, did a bit of fishing, popped into the pub, you know, a normal sort of day, which gave me time to think and reflect. And I began to feel a terrible sense of guilt, even if it is very difficult for me to find a parliamentary constituency, and it is hard.
Come on.
You know, contrary to what you'll hear on radio and television about how many times I see using elections as an effective pressure group to make our way through, and it is true. The one time I did stand and fight, the Conservative Party cheated against me in such a way that one of the party agents got a 9-month prison sentence, suspended. But of course the result stood. So all those things have been weighing on my mind. But difficult though it is, I can't let down those millions of people. I simply can't do it. It'd be wrong. So I have decided, I've changed my mind. It's allowed, you know. It's not always a sign of weakness. It could potentially be a sign of strength. So I am going to stand in this election. I'll be launching my candidacy at midday tomorrow in the Essex seaside town of Clacton. So midday tomorrow, Clacton, at the end of the pier. But perhaps more important than that, I've made a far bigger decision than that, which is, and I've talked to Richard, and he is happy about it. Oh, of course, you'll write your pieces about how badly we're all getting on, because that's journalism for you. Actually, I regret to say we're getting on quite well. But Richard is more than happy for me to put my head and shoulders firmly over the parapet and take the flak. So I'm coming back as leader of Reform UK, but not just for this election campaign. I'm coming back for the next 5 years. And there is one very simple reason for that. We all know already that the Conservative Party will be in opposition, but it won't be the opposition. They are incapable of it. They've spent most of the last 5 years fighting each other rather than standing up and fighting for the interests of this country. They are split down the middle on policy, and frankly right now, they don't stand for a damn thing. So our aim in this election is to get many, many millions of votes. And I'm talking far more votes than UKIP got back in 2015 when we got 4 million votes. We're going to get many, many, many more votes than that. How many seats in Parliament can we win under this system? Well, that's another matter. And that depends on what momentum we can get from here. When people start to realise...
24%, I'm telling you, it's going to go up to 24, at least 24% in the next couple of days, and then it'll just take off. What's required now from Reform UK is to make sure they have good parliament or potential parliamentarians in every seat. It's imperative they have everybody in place for whatever they're going to do, and any defections from the Conservative Party are taken into consideration, and people may have to stand aside depending on who's with who and what's with what. I would also speak to Lawrence Fox, that the MP that Lawrence has got and Reclaim is he's a good chap as well.
Lies in the red wall with Reform second to Labour, when they start to realise that actually in those seats it's a Conservative vote that's a vote for Labour, it's a Conservative vote that is a wasted vote, then I think we might just surprise everybody.
It's going to, because Sir Keir Starmer's shit, it's going to start to eat into the Labour Party vote just now, or because the Labour Party votes soft. People are going to not now vote for Reform UK rather than Labour. So we're going to see probably a reduction in the Labour Party support now, because when you actually look at the quality of dough balls that are in the Labour Party, it's like the Village Idiot Party. Then not many people, the more you see of these clowns, the less you want to vote for them.
And I know that you all think that our votes will simply come from the Conservatives and they'll get crushed. Believe me, this Conservative Party under Rishi Sunak, who nobody ever voted for, not even the Conservative Party members voted for, this party needs no help in being crushed. It's crushed itself already. And those people who already say they'll vote reform, very few of them would go back to the Conservatives even if we stood down. So we are appealing to Conservative voters. We are appealing to Labour voters. And those commentators and journalists that are longer in the tooth might remember that in 2015, against all predictions, we took more votes from the Labour Party than we took from the Conservative Party. So, Keir Starmer...
But he's also got Georgie Porgy, so we Georgie Porgy Galloway. Whether Georgie Porgy will get squeezed, if he can get the 650 or whatever it is, 630 odd seats or 40 seats or whatever it is, that'll be the problem with Labour, because Labour might get squeezed from the left. They're already having left-wing problems. If Georgie Porgy can speak to Steptoe, Uncle Albert, then and get him on board instead of Uncle Albert running as an independent. If Corbyn comes back, my prediction, all bets are off, will be correct again.
Starmer, yes, he'll win, but we're absolutely going to make sure his percentage is a lot smaller than it is now. But perhaps above all, what we're appealing to are those who intend not to vote, because they don't believe there's anybody within the Westminster establishment that actually stands up for them. Very often they're people running small businesses, acting as sole traders. They run a plumbing company, they run a taxi company, whatever it is. They know, when they're right, that nobody in Westminster is on their side. Nobody in Westminster even understands what they do. And what we're going to put forward over the next few years are men and women that will stand for us, represent us, who've got real life experience. To us, this is not just an extension of being in the Oxford Union. It isn't just some great big game. It's actually about our country and its people. And we're worried and we're fearful of many of the impacts that we've seen. We find what happened after those local elections just a few weeks ago, of candidates winning in Leeds, in Burnley, in Bradford and elsewhere, standing, shouting, Allahu Akbar, standing, shouting, we are coming to get you. The birth of sectarian politics in our country, caused by massively irresponsible immigration policies. And it was the Labour Party that opened the door. And who would have believed that a Conservative Party would have accelerated it? To anyone that says to me, well, surely you won't stand against Bill Bloggs, because he's a really good bloke and he was a Brexiteer, the answer is 2.4 million. 2.4 million people this Conservative government have allowed to settle in the UK in the course of the last 2 years. So whether Bill Bloggs is a good bloke or not, he has actually been part of what is a massive betrayal of 17.4 million people who voted Brexit. They voted yes to get back our independence, but they absolutely voted to get back control of our borders. And Richard said earlier that this is the immigration election. Well, it is. We have to build a new house every 2 minutes just to accommodate those that are legally coming in to Britain. The impact on the health service, the impact on infrastructure, on everything else. We have to get a grip. It is the major issue of our times. The population explosion has devalued the life of ordinary Britons in just the most extraordinary way. And even if those in Westminster don't know it, I promise you that those outside of it do. Now, I want to pay tribute to Richard, who has kept this party going during times when he was told there was no need for it. No need for it. Boris has an 80-seat majority, they're going to deliver Brexit, and everything that Brexit voters wanted. Well, Richard has kept this going at great personal cost in terms of time and money. I'm very pleased to say Richard, from this moment, is going to be chairman of this party, and I hope is going to spend as much time in Boston and Skegness whilst I'm taking the flak, so he can go up there and win that constituency. And I think back actually in Boston, Richard, to 2015, when UKIP put up a 21-year-old candidate who was a bit green, to say the least. He got 15,000 votes. I'm sure you're going to get many, many more than that. So the really big message here is, what I'm really calling for, and what I intend to lead, is a political revolt. Yes, a revolt. A turning of our backs on the political status quo. It doesn't work. Nothing in this country works anymore. The health service doesn't work. The roads don't work. None of our public services are up to scratch. We are in decline. This will only be turned around with boldness. We will only recover our position through economic growth. That will only come when we get away from just half a dozen multinationals dominating the thought of our politicians and allowing real entrepreneurship to flourish. So we're very, very much on the side of the little guy and woman. We're very much on the side of creating growth. We're very much on the side of ending the poisoning of our education system, where 50% of young people don't even know what D-Day is. So make no mistake, we are unashamedly patriotic. We believe that it's right to put the interests of British people first. We believe Brexit needs to be implemented properly, and we are going to be the voice of opposition. And I tell you what, I've done it before, I'll do it again, I'll surprise everybody. Thank you. Okay. Right. Well, as is customary with everything Richard and I do, you can all ask as many questions as you want. Name and company. I do know, but name and company first.
Christopher Hope, GB News, Mr. Farrage. You tried before. You haven't won several times. You admitted that. Why can you win this time without the data? You don't know where you live in Clacton, where are your supporters in Clacton. And the second question is, what's your ultimate goal? A 5-year plan to replace the Tory party as the main opposition party in this country if Labour win?
Point one, I made the point to you, Chris, earlier. I only stood once in earnest. All the previous times were as a pressure group to raise the profile of why we believe leaving the EU made sense when nobody else in Parliament was saying it. I did stand that one time. I did lose. I mean, I don't mind losing, but when they cheat, so much so that one of the party agents gets a 9-month prison sentence, you can perhaps understand why I'm not that friendly with the Tory party. All this, are you going to do a deal with the Tory party? I mean, not on your Nelly is the answer to that. Look, it's very difficult in the space of a few weeks, from scratch, for me of all people, given what they're going to throw at me, to win a parliamentary constituency. But I repeat the point I made. You know, I can't turn my back on the People's Army. I can't turn my back on those millions of people who followed me, believed in me, despite the horrendous things that were being said about me in 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16. You know, they're still there. They're still there. And they want someone to believe in. But you can add to that a younger cohort. I said earlier, Richard said the same, something is going on. Isn't it amazing? We haven't spent a bean on Facebook pushes or advertising, and yet of the top 50 most liked posts on Facebook in the first week of the campaign, 32 are reform. Even the Today programme, what a shame Nick Robinson's not here, it really is. But even the Today programme, doing a feature on TikTok this morning, saying just how many young people are saying vote reform. We're not putting money into it. I mean, this is happening organically. Something remarkable is going on. The one prediction I'll make, Chris, is we will get many, many more votes than the 4 million that UKIP got in 2015. Many, many more votes. We will win seats. I don't know how many. The crucial part of this campaign will be getting those people who are saying now they'll vote Labour, but I suspect in many cases that's through disgust, to vote for something they really believe in. And the plan, look, we're a very new party. This election at short notice, we're not making any bones about it. It's damn difficult. But just because something's difficult doesn't stop you doing it. The real plan is to be the opposition party in the next parliament and the biggest party at the 2029 general election. That is the ambition. Simple as.
Thank you very much.
you, Bell. 5 News. Nigel Farrage, haven't you just made Keir Starmer the happiest guy in British politics right now because you've just ensured that a whole lot of Conservative seats that might have stayed Conservative will not be Conservative next time round?
Exactly the same question I was asked in 2015. Exactly the same question. Oh, you'll damage the Tories' hopes, and we took more votes from Labour than we took from the Conservatives. And you were all wrong. All of you were wrong in 2015. No is the answer. Those people currently saying they'll vote Reform won't vote Conservative. They've gone. The Red Wallers feel completely betrayed. The promises that Boris Johnson made, and frankly, I'm not sure now even believed in himself, they've gone. They're not coming back. What we'll do from here, be quite interesting actually, I think we'll draw fairly evenly from now on from Conservative and the Labour Party. You watch the polls, I said in a week's time, Andy asked me the same question. But I think you'll see we're going to start drawing from Labour equally as much as the Conservatives. I've got to reiterate this, the Conservative Party have lost this election without my intervention. It's done. Trust is broken, trust is gone. And maybe that's why there's so little coverage of what's going on the election, because kind of people know the result. I've thrown myself into this today, not just to sort of entertain everybody, but because I genuinely think that something remarkable can happen. At least that's what I'll try for.
BBC News. Margaret Thatcher famously said she wasn't for turning. You are obviously for turning. Why the massive U-turn all of a sudden?
Have you never changed your mind about anything? Well, I tell you what, if you have never changed your mind about anything, you are a remarkable human being. I want to read your book. I'd love to follow it. No, I mean, look, this is the old thing about hearts and heads, isn't it? I rationally thought this was too difficult. I've changed my mind because I can't...
Because Nigel watched the Guerilla TV channel and I told them, well done, Nigel.
...let down millions of people who would feel let down by me unless I was at the front and led this charge over the course of the next 5.5 years. That is why I've changed my mind. I can't let those people down. I won't let those people down. The amount of guilt I felt yesterday, simply thinking about it, was too much. But I also know, just as throughout Europe, there is a new phenomenon racing through politics ahead of these European elections this weekend, I promise you, something is happening out there. I've been in this game 30 years. I fought lots of elections. I've generally got a pretty good sense of timing. Something is happening out there. So yes, I changed my mind, and you know what? I'm not ashamed of it one little bit. We've got another one in the front row here.
Shihab Khan from ITV News. You mentioned that you're going to be contesting across the country. The system is designed in a way which it means it will be quite difficult for you to win a number of seats. What would be viewed as a success here now that you're running? How many MPs do you need to win to say this election has gone well?
I agree with you. Electoral reform is vital. It's absolutely ridiculous that we have no proportionality in our system whatsoever. Tony Blair looked at this way back in the 90s. AV Plus was the proposal where you'd vote for an MP, but have a second vote to get representation in Parliament for big views. All I can tell you is this. If we get a massive, massive vote and a relatively small number of seats, then the call for reform will be there. And I want to reform the electoral system. I want to reform the sheer corruption of the House of Lords, where, you give enough money, you get a seat in the House of Lords. We are a radical party. We don't think the current political structure works for our country anymore. Success on the one hand for me will be standing up and fighting for what I believe in, rather than running away from it, rather than, like answering the previous question. We're going to get a huge number of votes. I think there's every chance we'll get more votes than the Conservative Party. I genuinely do. And you can all hold me to that in a few weeks' time. But I genuinely believe we can get more votes.
I think he'll be getting more representation in the polls than the Conservatives in the next few days. Now that he's back and he's standing, I think it's going to go to 24% in the next few days. Never mind after that. We're going to see a drop of the Conservatives to under 20%. And we're going to see defections of potentially actual Conservative MPs to reform, because they're like Lee Anderson did. He was probably even premature. But if they are wanting to retain their seats, they would be better under reform than the Conservative Party for the next election.
in this election than the Conservative Party. They are on the verge of total collapse, and it couldn't happen, frankly, to nicer people. But well, I mean, I say that because in 2019, I got rid of Mrs. May. We formed the Brexit Party. Within 6 weeks...
We get rid of Mrs. May. We told you 4 days before she was going. We got her.
Richard and I got rid of Mrs. May. We then stood aside for Boris. I mean, I didn't even get a thank you. So I don't think they're terribly nice people, and I genuinely mean that. We will win seats in Parliament. How many? I don't know. All depends how much momentum we can build over the course of the next few weeks. Thank you very much indeed. One more in the end. I will get to all of you, I promise.
I promise. From PA. The fact that you're making this announcement here and not in Clacton, does that stand as proof that you care more about the London media than you do about your future constituents?
Are you coming to Clacton at 12 o'clock tomorrow? Answer the question. Are you coming to Clacton at 12 o'clock tomorrow?
Is the bus going?
I tell you what, I'm going to be in Clacton at 12 o'clock tomorrow. Why do it here in London? Because this is where you all are. And you hate leaving your little bubble, don't you? No, I don't mean that. I will be. You're very welcome to come to Clacton tomorrow. There's a very good Wetherspoons there. Now, let's keep going. Lady there.
Hi, Natasha Clark from LBC. When did you decide to make this decision?
2 o'clock yesterday afternoon.
Whose decision?
He was watching the Guerilla TV channel 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon.
Was it? Yours or Richard Tice's?
Well, ultimately, it was my decision to say I'm going to put myself forward and say to Richard, are you happy with this? And he's more than happy with this. In fact, I think he's delighted with it, actually. So we've talked on and off about this, of course, for months. And I've been very reluctant to do this. Very reluctant. I mean, to be honest, I've been reluctant because I've actually rather enjoyed life at GB News.
Now, the question is there going to be leadership debates now with Sir Keir Starmer, who's and Wallace and Gromit, Asian Wallace and Gromit?
It's been a great job, best job I've ever had. I did enjoy your mob as well when I was there, but then again, I got sacked, but I'm used to that. It happens quite regularly. No, I've loved being at GB News and doing a show 4 nights a week and doing extra stuff and travelling around the country and all of those things. So giving that up's not an easy thing.
Your plan to do this today, to come here today, to stand and to swap jobs with Richard Tice, that was your idea or his idea?
Oh, I don't really understand the
question.
question.
Was it a conversation that you guys had and you decided to do it together?
Do you think he's been bullied and strong-armed or something? I mean, what are you suggesting? No, it's a very silly question. Never mind. Let's go on.
Thank you. Kate McCann at Times Radio. Can I ask you if there was a particular moment? You mentioned meeting people and people saying they felt let down. Was there one interaction that really made this for you? And did you discuss it with Donald Trump? Did you seek his advice at all? And just finally, I believe you have a candidate already in Clacton, so what's going to happen to him? Thank you.
Well, yeah, you're right. There is a candidate in Clacton, and, that's he knew for many, many months that this was a possibility. For many, many months, this was a possibility. Not a probability, but a possibility.
Well, as far as I'm aware, they've not filled every seat, so I'm sure he could probably get found a seat unless he wants to, if he's local and he wants to stay local. But I'm sure there may be other seats that he could be moved to.
Did I discuss it? I think the Donald's got other things to be dealing with just at this moment in time. He's been rather busy. Including joining TikTok and suddenly racing up to ridiculous numbers. I think it was particularly in Skegness, actually. Particularly in Skegness. A constituency... In 2013, UKIP won 16 county councillors on Lincolnshire District Council. I mentioned earlier the seat that Richard's standing in, where we, got 15,000 votes from a candidate who was incredibly young. So it's one of those places that I've campaigned a lot over the years. There was one particular interaction in the street with a bloke, and he sort of shrugged his shoulders and said, "Well, okay, mate, I'm not going to give you a hard time or slag you off, but I just felt." And then the next morning I was in Ashfield with Lee Anderson and getting the same thing. And then I got home late Saturday night and I had time to think about it. And then Sunday morning I just thought, I'm just not feeling good about this. I'm letting people down. Better to fight something that is very, very difficult, where the outcome is far from certain, Better to do that than let people down. And I wanted the UK to be an independent country, to be a self-governing country. And, I was pretty alone on that for many, many years, and we did achieve it. And I'm very proud of the fact that I spent all that time doing it. But I just think the way we're being governed, I think, is disconnected from ordinary folk. I just think we're failing. And I genuinely believe that the choice between these two men is very, very narrow. The narrowest it's ever been at any British general election, I think, in modern times. Sir.
Good afternoon, Nigel. Nick Ellaby talk. Did Donald Trump's conviction help you change your mind? And how are you going to use Brexit to improve Britain's financial situation?
Okay. Donald Trump's conviction made no difference to me at all, and the whole thing was a complete kangaroo court from start to finish, utterly ludicrous. One looks at what Clinton and various other presidents have done. I mean, the fact that he even came to trial, I think it's a travesty. I've now no doubt he'll win the presidential election. But America becomes ever...
Again, what I've said, Nigel's definitely watching me.
...more divided, and the whole thing becomes ever more worrying. Look, I've made my mind up. I'm going to do what I'm going to do, all right? I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And I believe I'm right in doing it. And if I win, I win. If I don't, I don't. But many other Reform candidates are going to win.
How are you going to use Brexit to improve Britain's financial situation?
We are self-governing. I mean, the economics of this are the least of the problems. We've gone from 7th to 4th in terms of global exporters. We're doing far better economically, as I mentioned earlier, than our former colleagues, partners in the European Union. There are many other things on the cost of living that we'll talk about in the next couple of weeks. In particular, why we're paying the most ridiculous energy bills and have been for the last 20 years, green subsidies, not being self-sufficient in energy, all of that will come. Lady there.
Thank you, Jerry Scott from The Times. Mr Farrage, you spoke about kicking things up into the 8th gear. What are we going to see differently now to what has already come? And do you hope your return is going to bring in more donations? You made a point that Richard
Yeah.
put a lot of his own money in. How do you hope to kind of remedy that situation?
Yeah, the donation thing last week did start to turn, actually. Did start to turn. We started to get some serious money coming into the party last week. Again, it's all a bit last minute. 8th gear, which Richard talked about, I just think we're just going to do more of what we've been doing with an even higher level of energy, higher level of optimism. And you know what? The money is going to come. We will have enough money. We're not going to have 30 million. But as the Facebook example I gave earlier proves, actually, we're doing very, very well on a limited budget. It's amazing what a well-aimed stone from a sling can do. Lady there. I'm coming. Don't worry, I won't forget over here. No, I won't.
Sophie Huskisson from The Mirror. So you've announced you're standing for MP to become MP for Clapton.
Yes.
This is despite you previously having said, and I quote, "Do I want to spend every Friday for the next 5 years in Clacton?"
That's right.
What's changed your mind on Clacton?
That's right. You're absolutely right. It's a massive... You're absolutely right. It's a huge commitment. It is a huge commitment. I said earlier, in answer to the question there from LBC, I said earlier that actually working at GB News is the best job I've ever had. I haven't had to travel up and down the country. I was 21 years an MEP. I know what it's like to travel around constituencies, to meet people. It's a huge effort. And part of that weighing up factor was absolutely the question you asked. Am I prepared to give the time, not just to politics, but to a constituency as well? And the demands of a parliamentary constituency are greater, even though they're smaller, than the demands of an MEP constituency, necessarily. Surgeries, meeting people, all of those things. You are absolutely right. I'm making a massive potential commitment, if I win that seat, to this and to those people. Thank you for the question. Gentleman there.
Thanks. Ben Quinn from The Guardian. Mr Farrage, is this the moment at which the actual candidate in Clacton is finding out that he is no longer the candidate? and also, what does it say about the way you view democracy, that these types of backroom changes of leadership can happen?
Sorry, I almost nodded off then. I really do apologise. He knew 6 months ago that it was a possibility, all right? He knew it was a possibility. And is my standing in Clacton going to help 600 other candidates? I think it may well do, all right? And sometimes tough things have to be done. It's not an easy game. Right, we're going to go over here. We're getting a bit bored with the right wing. Let's go over here.
Thanks, Mr. Farrage. Harry Fawcett from Channel 4 News. You say this has been in the works for some months. Until a couple of days ago, you were definitively ruling it out.
Yeah.
You're accusing the Tories of lying, of people not believing a word they have to say. Why should people, from this point, believe a word you have to say?
Hang on, I said I've been planning for months to do it. I've said already I'd planned to run. I was actually going to launch in this room last Thursday, all right? I didn't do it because of a short-term campaign that was called. I thought I could serve the cause better going around the country as I've done.
I wouldn't get your knickers in a twist about the journalists, Nigel. Would just be taking well, I wouldn't really. It's a bit of a lame question.
For the last week with a fair degree of energy, all right? I've just realised it doesn't work. The formula doesn't work. People don't buy it. They want me in the front lines. They want me to take the flak, and that's why I'm back doing it. So I haven't been dishonest with anybody. I have changed my mind, but I've not been dishonest with anybody, least of all myself.
Jane Merrick from the I newspaper. You said that you would get more than 4.5 million votes that you did in 2015. Will you resign if you don't get that target? And then secondly, are you still planning to help your friend Donald Trump with his Republican campaign?
If I don't get that result, I'll go down the pub and have a think about it, all right? And be very disappointed. No, look, I haven't changed my mind. Conviction or not, I haven't changed my mind that the world will be a safer place with Donald Trump in the White House. I think the weakness that we've seen under Joe Biden has encouraged, Putin, President Xi, etc. The world will be a safer place with Donald Trump. Clearly, if I'm elected the MP for Clacton, and I'm there every Friday, as the Mirror pointed out to me very helpfully, it'll become more difficult, but not impossible. All right? Okay. Yes. Sky at the back there.
Thanks very much. Richard Tice mentioned just now that the polls aren't moving. I guess that also reflects your performance so far. Is this decision in part a reflection of the fact that you don't think the campaign has got off to the start that you were hoping? And do you think that you're bigger than this party?
Yes, the answer to that is yes. He is bigger than the party is just now. He will make the party bigger in itself. I'm sure he's not going to say that, but that's the reality of the answer to the question. To be fair, Richard's done a great job as well, so it's going to be kudos to Richard in his campaign to be elected in the constituency.
I would say this to you, the Conservative Party's first week, above all, has been to crush the Reform vote. We're bringing back national service and nonsense like that, which isn't actually true anyway. And it hasn't worked. We've gone up on the week, not down on the week. The point Richard made was we're 3 points up with most pollsters on last week than we were before. So actually, given the onslaught, we think we're in a pretty good shape. All right? We think we're in pretty good shape. What we now have to do is to get the big push up. None of you believe it's possible. Just you watch. I think what we've done today will inject some energy and some optimism into the campaign. We'll reprioritise what we're all doing. Hey, I'm pretty bullish about this. I really, really am. I'm pretty bullish about this. Okay, let's keep going. A few more. I know time is running on.
Hi, Nigel. Christian from the Daily Express. You've spoken very passionately this afternoon about everything wrong with Britain and the current party system, but would you outline for our readers what reforms optimistic, positive view of where Britain needs to go is? And can you confirm whether you'll be representing Reform at BBC's seven-way debate on Friday?
Do you know, Richard and I mentioned this in the car on the way here. There are a number of debates. We haven't had time to work it all out yet, all right? But we will, between us, we will cover all of it. I have to say, seven's an awful lot, isn't it? But hey, there we are. I'm sure Plaid are a very important party, and we should all see them in our houses in Gloucestershire or wherever it is. So I haven't worked all of that out, all right? We've got a lot more to work out over the course of the next couple of days. I did not come fully to this decision until 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon, having taken a previous tack the week before, and that's where we are. Okay, I've got to do a few more. Yeah, one. Because people are getting bored.
Thank you very much, Nigel Farrage. Jack Elson from The Sun.
Yep.
Many people will be surprised by this announcement because for the past week, you and Richard Tice have been saying that he's the leader and you're just helping out.
Yep.
So what is it? Can you just spell out that you have that you don't think he has? And secondly, if Donald Trump was British, do you think he'd be in Reform UK?
Well, he was in Reform USA, wasn't he? You know, when Ross Perot set up Reform USA, Trump was briefly a part of it. But of course, remember, it was Reform Canada that completely transformed the landscape in Canadian politics. And one of the reasons that I chose the name Reform, having been the Brexit Party before, I was thinking about that precedent in case the Tory Party let us all down, which indeed they have. Look, you know, I've been doing this longer than Richard. I have, as I've said already 2 or 3 times today, there's a people's army out there that I built up over many, many years, and they're still there. And they're very fond of Richard, but they know me a little bit better. It's just as simple as that. Sir.
Thanks very much. Emilio from Politico, 2 questions. Firstly, I know you've said that you're not interested, but have the Tories been trying to do some kind of deal with you at all? And if so, could you give us any details? And secondly, are you bidding to be Prime Minister in 2029?
There has been no attempt at seduction at all, at least not that I've noticed. So I don't think that's happened at all. I'm aiming for this political party to become the voice of opposition in the next parliament. I'm sure we're going to achieve that because the Conservatives are incapable of doing that. And in 2029, do you know what? By then, somebody younger and better may well have come along. But if I can help get it moving, help keep it moving, I'll be delighted with that. For me, politics has never been about rank, title and position. For me, politics has always been about changing things, about changing narratives, about changing outcomes. You know, well, yeah, look, if we get to that point in 29 and I'm still standing up, who knows? Chap at the back.
Hi Nigel, it's Joe Mays from Bloomberg. If Reform does well at this election and the final result is narrower than the polls suggest, and you found yourself in a position to influence the composition of the next government, would you help the Tories back into power, or would you rather Keir Starmer became Prime Minister?
Oh, goodness me. I mean, I haven't got time for all this. It's all too complicated. Look, let's just fight the campaign for the next 4 weeks, shall we? You know, I would, you know, if we were in a position to influence anything like that, as indeed the Lib Dems found themselves with Clegg back in 2010, well, you know, I think our objectives would be pretty simple, wouldn't they? You know, no betrayal of Brexit and proper control of our borders, and whichever one offered the best would be the best. At the moment, I can't see either. Sir.
Hello, Tom Scotsman from Politics Home. Is this the moment now you're expecting, or would you accept more Conservative candidates to come into the fold for Reform UK and hopefully campaign for your party? And is that something that you've been thinking of?
I think in a week's time, the polls will look very different. As I say, you'll begin to see that a Conservative vote is a wasted vote in the red wall. I think much may change. Right, I've done my best. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on the campaign trail.
Absolutely massive. What you guys saying? Oh, you guys chatting away there. FBPE seething. Stop Islam. It's like, well done, Nigel. At hometown where I was born and raised, although I moved to Cambridgeshire when I was 5, but Clacton will always be home to me. I was at Saturday's rally in London with 10 feet Saltire flying and proud. Yes, Nigel, vote Reform. Yeah, massive. They need to ditch ties. Well, I don't know, Donny, you need to tell me what your problem is with Richard. I don't see there's a number of people who've said Richard Tice don't like Richard Tice. I like Richard Tice, a lovely fella. I've got the Union Jack and my St George's flag flying at home. Yeah, you want to get Reform UK in your front window in Cyprus at the moment. Now, nice, Tracy, nice. Woohoo. Nigel will love you, and Tommy can save us. Agree. Come on, UK. I'm going to get sloshed. Well done, Tracy. Sloshed, I tell you. Shouldn't get just be Rishi worried now. Starmer should be as well. Yeah, 100%. The Preston journalist. Yeah, 100%. I think the guys in the northeast, northwest. And even in Scotland, I think there's going to be massive inroads into Reform UK. We've got a guy from Reform on Basil the Great on Twitter. Try and join the Twitter thread tomorrow. That Preston journalist, and we'll have a wee chat as well. Craig is there as well. So Basil the Great is from the SDP, and he's on with the guy from Reform, one of the candidates from Reform. Tomorrow night we'll have a chat with him. Starmer should be as well, with good campaigners like Tice. Habib, he's very good as well, and Anderson. Reform could do well taking Labour from Labour, and the Tories. Yeah, I mean, I reckon they're going to get 24% in the next week, and that momentum may start to weaken the Labour lead. And if we start to see a downturn in the Labour polling under 40% in the next couple of weeks, it's game on. And also, you've also got wee Georgie Porgy Galloway's for a Workers' Party, which is also going to eat into the Reform Party. It's going to be massive. Okay, bye-bye, guys. Stay safe. Have a great time in Cyprus, Tracy. Woohoo, come on, Scotland, get the Nats out. That's it. Don't vote for the Labour Party, and don't vote for anybody else. It's Reform UK now. Get up, ye Snook and Stammer. Yeah, that's kind of right around you, I think. The left wing and I like Nigel. Exactly, mate. There's tons of people on the left that love Nigel. He spoke, and his charisma, one of the best politicians we've got. Certainly is, pal. Even for Aberdeen, yeah, exactly. I think everybody's going to be jumping ship, man. Everybody from all over the spectrum. Even the SNP guys will be jumping ship to Nigel. I like Ben though. Yeah, Ben Habib's a good guy. At last, some good news. I'd say it was great news. I think that's absolutely massive. That's totally changed the whole prospectus on this short-called election, and we've told, I'm going to show you some stuff that we've already done with regards to this, and I'm voting Reform, I'm voting for Nigel. Yeah, massive, guys, massive, absolutely massive. Let's see if we can't get some of my old videos back. So let's see contents. Reform, here we go. Bum. Reform. Let's see, Nigel. I think we'll go for Nigel. Nigel. So there we go. So here we go. We're going to go into this one. This is, when was this done? Doesn't even give me a date. That's interesting. Let's go. Tell me on this.
I'm a household name. 8 Sleep's brand new Pod 4 is truly incredible right out of the box.
So this was, when was this? I should give me a date here. 4 weeks ago. 4 weeks ago, so a month ago, I was saying into the local elections. I'll cover that tomorrow. Let's see, where are we?
Looks like, and says, oh, they're a woman.
All the Islamofascists. And it doesn't really answer any questions that are put forward. General election. Don't get me wrong, Reform are just behind the Conservatives, less than 100 votes behind the Conservatives in a parliamentary election for an MP. So, and to get into second place, so they were doing something right. But again, Carol's correct on the back of this.
Exceeded that within a sort of a hair's whisker of defeating the Tories into second place.
So do you think you're an existential threat to the Tories now at the general election?
Well, we're going to be...
if they weren't before, they certainly are now.
Standing in 630 seats, and we're going to be putting forward a bold, clear agenda. There's no difference between the main two parties. It's ridiculous that the Tories saying you're just going to let Labour in. They're both the same. Socialists, high tax, high wasteful government spending, mass immigration, collapse of law and order, pro the job-destroying net zero. All of this is leading to the longest recession per person in 70 years. And nothing.
And I would say corporatist as well. Corporatist, not capitalist.
Labour does will be any different. It's a catastrophe.
I think it's
because
probably
that's what socialism always is.
It was probably the first and last time that Rishi Sunak's been called a socialist. I mean, that's sort of laughable.
I've been calling it. It's not laughable. They've raised taxes, Kathy, to the highest level for 70 years. They've raised government spending to the highest level.
And that's because the WEF don't want Brexit Britain to work. That's why they're doing this. They're spending things and stupid things like the lockdowns. They deliberately did the lockdowns for 2 years to destroy the British economy, to destroy small businesses. And this was done by the Wokey Wefters. And don't forget, Sir Keir Starmer is a Wokey Wefter as well. He's already pledged his allegiance to Gordon Brown, Tony Blair. Tony Blair and Gordon Brown were over at Davos taking their orders and telling Sir Keir Starmer what's going to happen from Baldy Dr. Evil.
For 70 years. We've just been through the lowest growth decade for 70 years. That's not what conservative economic principles are supposed to be about. That's socialism, literally by definition.
So you plan to stand in 600 plus seats in the general election, but can you really win any? I mean, you haven't even won a councillor yet, have you?
Oh no, we have. We've won council seats.
Again, both the Workers' Party and Reform. It's first. I mean, I understand why she's asking this. Kathy thinks asking this question. But, I mean, to have never stood in a full slate of MPs, I mean, I don't remember a few years ago or to this day, any party standing full slates of 650.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to IMOLab, the second half of our Cell PT series. In the last episode...
So I'll be very interested. So... that was me saying if Nigel comes back as leader and Jeremy Corbyn joins this and leads the Workers' Party, the Lib Lab Con Party have got big problems. So part one of my prophecies come to pass. So if Georgie Porgy Galloway gets Uncle Albert into, rather than standing as an independent, if he sweet talks Jeremy Corbyn now into standing as a leader for the Workers' Party, the Labour Party have got big problems and a pincer movement there. But let's see if I can get this one up. Let me see if I can get this. Let me see. I think I actually did it's a live stream. So content, live streams, filter. Oh no, can I filter by? Wonder how I could do it. What's the quickest way to do this? Let me try this way. So live. Popular. Where is it? If Nigel comes back, you see, that was 4 months ago. Reform, I was saying it 4 months ago. Politics. The seat of Clacton in Essex. Well, I've already said that Nigel. You can see the colour of there. Let me just move out the way. You can see the colour of the screen and the quality of the production now. Should be in a seat that's winnable for him. I mean, just to go into any seat and then hope that seat's going to win was a bit short-sighted, I think, politically. And what Nigel should have done was had a poll and find out which constituency, the 650 or 630-ish constituencies, and I would have been finding out which one was the most likely to elect him. Look, so that was me saying that 4 months ago, and that's what they did. That's what they've done. So, I mean, it's quite incredible what I've said, and the actual people that are listening to, obviously, what I've said and what they've actually done subsequently. Which is, an incredible feat to my political astuteness when it comes to forecasting and giving the correct political and synopsis. Where is that? That's really, really weird. Let's see, maybe in videos. It might be an upload video. Let's go popular. Here we go. So this is 3 years ago. 3 years ago. No other political commentator predicted that Reform UK could win the general election, and that we're now going to see Reform 100% overtake the Conservative Party. It's done. That's done. But now we've got a chance to see if the Reform UK will beat all the doughball MPs that are in the Labour Party, and that's the game. That's game on. That's game on. That's what's going to happen.
Well, hello, my baby gorillas, and great.
I think I'm looking a lot better now. My goodness, just shows you I'm like a fine wine.
Great news today. Obviously, Nigel watches the Guerilla TV channel. Fantastic, great. I said that they should transform into the Reform Party, and they have.
So it's looking a bit better now.
Absolutely fantastic news. Over the moon that they've actually done it. What I would suggest, humbly, as a strategy going forward, is that they speak to Lawrence Fox. Lawrence Fox is a lovely fella. I really like Lawrence.
And that's still good advice even to this day, to get the Conservative MP was with Lawrence is actually a good fella. I'm surprised he didn't go to Nigel's, but I don't know what the situation is with the reclaiming reform, but I would have definitely just seen the amalgamation of that. Obviously Lawrence was down with Tommy Robinson the other day there, so I don't know what the script would be there, but it's still correct political information.
Every time I hear him, he makes a lot of sense, and he's correct as well. He's politically correct, and I think Nigel should speak. I know he's already spoken to Lawrence, but I think he should speak about bringing the Reclaim Party into the Reform Party. It seems pointless to have two different parties, and they should just come together. Lawrence is not, I think, as good as Nigel, and he's certainly not got as much political gravitas, and it would just split the vote. It would be completely pointless, and I think both of whom are looking at the same sort of idea, same direction. Obviously Nigel needs to start to incorporate other people's ideas in the Reform Party who are of a similar political ilk, and develop the Reform Party as much as can. I would also get Gerard Baton. I think Gerard Baton is an excellent politician. I'd like to see
again down the Tommy Robinson speeches down in London just on Saturday.
Gerard Baton involved. I'd like to see what's her face, the for Britain, Anne-Marie Waters, and
yeah, well, basically what I was saying there was a uniting of the right, which would have made all the difference. To be honest with you, I think just now the Reform Party is actually even more professional. It looks really incredibly professional and going places. Incredible. So I think I'm going to move the thing I'm going to talk about, Carol Benjamin, to about 8 o'clock, I think, because I need to get some things sorted out, and I'll come back and speak to you later on tonight. What are you guys saying? Evening from Aberdeen. Evening Aberdeen. I like Benno. Yeah, at last some good news. I'm voting Reform. I'd be voting for Nigel, and I'm not even right wing. Left town media. Excellent. Yeah, I'd vote for Nigel. Yeah, both Labour and Sunak will be crapping it just now. Yeah, it's absolutely massive. It's massive, and I don't think anybody 3 years ago could have predicted that Nigel Farrage could win this general election, as I potentially did. That would have seemed almost like quackery, but I have got it potentially correct. I said that Nigel should stand as well. There's obviously been a lot of comments down south as well that Nigel should stand. and whatever you guys have done down south, it's done the trick. So it's now about support for Reform UK, and whether or not it's enough time. I said that it should happen before this, but if it's enough time that it's going to eat into the Labour Party vote, which I think it is, so only time will tell on that.